Welcome to the Unfettered Wealth Podcast with Eric Tashlein from Connecticut Capital. In this podcast, we help business owners and successful professionals plan for better wealth outcomes. Join us for this journey where we explore ways to help you identify better wealth decisions to help you achieve an unfettered life. It's time to ask yourself, what do you want more of?
Hello and welcome to Unfettered Wealth with Eric Tashlein. Hello, Eric. How are you?
Hey, good morning, Eric. I'm doing great. It's Friday.
Oh, yes. It is Fantastic Friday. Heading into the weekend. What do you got going on?
Let's see. So tonight, I think we got invited out with some friends for dinner, so that's great.
Yeah.
And then Saturday's a bit of a downer. I have to put together an IKEA bed. So that's never fun.
I like IKEA. I like wandering through IKEA and seeing stuff, but I like building things, but I don't know if I like building those specific things.
Yeah, I always find the instructions are lacking.
Yeah, well, you just get creative, right? Just enough duct tape and anything sticks together. So you're going out to a restaurant tonight. We actually did that this week, and I will say it was my first time being in a restaurant since this entire thing started. The pandemic and all that jazz.
Nice.
And it was for lunchtime. My daughter, wife, and I went, and it was really surreal because it was us and one other couple in the entire restaurant. And I just kept thinking, how are these businesses staying afloat?
Right. No, I agree with you. It's brutal.
It is brutal out there. So I hope that people listening are supporting small business. I know that's something that you believe in, definitely. And I'd love to see a lot of people going out and trying to do their best to support small business in a safe way, of course. But they need it. I think they need it. So,
yeah, no, for sure. I mean, we've been doing any of the dining out we've done has been outside, and and as you said, I think the waitresses especially appreciate it, and you got to help all those folks.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I know today's podcast isn't about small business, but that's something that's on your mind usually anyway. But today we're going to be talking about something, and this is probably like at the end of business, right? We're talking about a little bit of retirement.
Yeah, so this is the fun part, right? The end goal for many. And over the years, I've seen some people retire with gusto. They've just had a blast, and they'll tell us a lot of fun stories. I've had some others though that, seem to have some regrets. It's usually that the type A man or woman that didn't maybe have a lot of hobbies because of all the hours that they committed to their career. And so I wanted to speak to that. I mean, I think most advisors hit on, retirement planning and your allocations, but, there are some of these psychological issues you need to be prepared, when you step down from a long career. So I wanted to talk to you about that today.
Okay, it sounds pretty deep. Psychological stuff. So where do we start with this? I mean, that's a big, broad topic.
Yeah, sure. So I think the biggest thing is, many of our clients, I'm not sure that they actually have taken the time to sit down and say, okay, well, what does my retirement look like? I mean, we all have a routine every day. We get up. Maybe you go to the gym, shower, go to work. And when you don't have an office to head to, it definitely is disruptive at first. So I just wanted to kind of go through that process. First thing first, it's usually, we'll talk about money with people, right? It's not everything, but it's a necessity. And, I see a lot of pundits that'll say, hey, you need 80% of your pre-retirement income. But I don't always find that to be true. And especially, that we do have some clients and people we work with that have, earning significant salaries from the business or from corporate. And so sometimes it's just not realistic. I mean, if you're earning, I hope this is the case for everybody listening, if you're earning $500,000 a year, I mean, you almost have to have $10 million to replicate that in retirement. I think for most people, that's just never going to be reality, right?
Yeah.
And so I think there's certain things that you need to dispel. I think just kind of figuring out, hey, what are your likely bills? What does your lifestyle look like? And then working back from there as a start. And I think being realistic is a good thing. I think working provides a lot of people with status. And I think a lot of us over the years have, looked at our careers as part of our self-worth. And I think those are some things you need to work through.
Eric, it seems to me that my father, when he retired, and I know this happens to a lot of people, not just people in my family, but they've been getting up at 4:30 in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning for decades or for however long. And their internal clock just kind of has them doing that same thing. But like you said, if you don't have an office to go to, I think people can slip into, well, I'm going to sleep in. And then, oops, I slept past the time I normally go to the gym, or whatever. I don't have some place that I have to be at 7 a.m. or at 6 a.m. or at 8 a.m. or whatever. So maybe they adjust their time schedule. Do you find that to be a problem, or do you think it's something that people entering retirement, from your client's perspective, do they adjust to that pretty quickly? Is that something easily adjusted to?
I think it really depends on the person. I have some that just all of a sudden establish new routines pretty quickly. I have others that, might spend a few weeks of retirement just, watching TV and hitting the refrigerator. And,
Yep.
And I think pretty quickly they will learn that's probably not the routine they should get into. So, so that's part of it. Certainly, as we address, money's part of it as well. I think, I think in some cases people are pleasantly surprised. You don't always need $4 or $5 million to retire. And I think even just sitting down with your spouse, sometimes you'll learn that, hey, my wife is actually willing to live simply. And the Amazon truck that's coming every day is not something she, feels she needs to do when we retire. So that's great news. Mm-hmm. And so I think part of retirement is, finding those routines. I think, part of it can be an ego check, especially for those high earners, right? Mm-hmm. We all get status from our careers, and, sometimes our cars make us feel good on the drive to work. But I think it's going to be a situation when you do go to retire that you're probably not going to be buying new cars along the way. And it's interesting as I work with people as they go through the process and head towards retirement. When they start reflecting on what they need to spend, I think a lot of them realize, the toys that they've bought over the years, they tend to lose their luster quicker as they age. Mm-hmm. And I know myself and some of the things I've bought, I'm like, gosh, it's really the maintenance and some of the headaches that go along with having certain toys kind of outweigh the joy that you get from them. So it's definitely a time for a little bit of soul searching in terms of what you own and where you're going to live, and as an example.
Well, and funny thing is I was speaking to a gentleman about this about a week ago in retirement. And one of the things that he actually was speaking about is that he knew that he didn't have to go out and lease that car, because he was leasing a new car every 3 years. And the main reason was not because, he always got a very nice one. Let's be honest, he always got top of the line. But one of the reasons that he did that was because he felt it was necessary for the status of his position to have a car like that to reflect who he was. It wasn't a pride issue. It was in business, people do judge you.
Sure.
Like if you're pulling up in a Pinto, but you're supposed to be a high-ranking business person, whatever that business person is doing, that doesn't give a great appearance, right?
Sure.
And so the suits that you're buying, or the dresses that you're buying, the business outfits that you're buying, you have to do that when you own a company, when you are in a high position
Absolutely.
in any company. So I think that's a lot of that adjustment that you're talking about, and it's not necessarily. I think it feels good for people to put on some sweatpants, right?
No, totally.
Yeah. So, and be able to put on a nice, just old pair of Levi's and not worry about what people are looking at. And so I think that goes a long way to change what you have to spend money on. And it's not necessarily just keeping up with the Joneses. It's keeping up with the business mentality and the view that people have of you in that company.
Sure. It's funny. You mentioned the Pinto, and everybody likes a great deal. A very funny story. When I first started out working, there was a family that owned an automotive business. Mm-hmm. And the woman went on to tell me, she's like, hey, this guy pulled up in this, light green Pinto. She's like, yeah, he just, he looked poor. He didn't dress very well. And his transmission was going. And she felt so badly for him that they decided they would replace the transmission at no cost. And the guy was just overwhelmed. He couldn't believe it. And he said, listen, I really would like to do something nice for you. Since you've done this for me, can I bring you out for lunch someday? And she said, sure. And he gave her his address. And she looked at the address. She's like, that doesn't seem right to me. Anyway, so she drives down towards Fairfield, Southport area of Connecticut. And inside of this tremendous gate leading up to a mansion was this crappy light green Pinto. And it was this guy's car. So apparently he just, he liked to live an understated life while he was out in the public eye. And
wow.
So he ended up getting a free transmission out of it.
Wow. Good for him.
Off.
Well, yeah, good for him. I don't know if I'd trust a transmission in any Pinto, but yeah, that's good for him. Oh my gosh. So what else when you're talking about, and one of the things that you had said is retiring without regret, right? No regret, with purpose, and trying to find that purpose after retirement can be tough for folks. I know that there's a lot of tips and tricks out there. What do you say?
Sure. So, I mean, I think a couple things. I mean, I'll talk to one of my friends in particular as a father who's very, very successful. And he's getting older. He's late 70s. He's still working, more than full time. And, he'll just tell me his dad doesn't have any hobbies, right?
Mm-hmm,
and that's all he knows is work. So I think a big thing would be, especially for some of those type A personalities we work with, is maybe during your work career, take a few weeks off, try not to check your email, and start to think about what your next life looks like. We've seen some people in corporate take a mini retirement if they're able to take off a month or so, and just kind of live the life of a retiree to see what it's all about.
Huh.
So I think just thinking about that structure, could be just waking up, go to the gym, have coffee, and maybe you start to write on a book to your children about your lifetime experiences or whatever the case may be.
Mm-hmm.
Just having a routine is a great thing. I mean, we've seen some people learn languages, have a couple of clients actually that regularly attend or they audit classes at a local university. And
really?
And it's really cool. I mean, it's a prestigious university, and they just said it's just fun being around. Obviously, this is pre-COVID, but it's fun being around younger people and learning at the same time. And as a bonus, it's funny, they get invited to these very cool cocktail parties now.
Mm.
And apparently, they've made it to a few email lists. When there's a world-class speaker coming in, they'll be invited, and they're like, "Oh, this is great!" I'm listening to the speaker and who's a world leader, and I'm getting free champagne. So. There's a lot of things you can do to have fun.
Yeah, and I think that, like you said, you've got some type A personalities. There's a lot of ideas out there. There's a lot of things that you can do that people really don't think about. And sometimes they've just been so busy with business that they haven't been able to do it, like the gentleman that you're speaking of. But when you are retiring, I think it's obviously very important to have that purpose. And I know that there are quite a few people that are type A personality that they go on to start charities. And
Sure.
not just necessarily volunteer with charities, which is another great way to spend your time, because if that's the personality that you have, then do that. But if you're a type A personality, sometimes it can be difficult to volunteer someplace and not run it, right? So
Sure.
there's nothing wrong with finding a need and filling it. And I think that that's another way that people can give back, stay busy, feel and kind of not replace that sense of pride they had in their career, but that is a tough one to lose when you kind of had your identity wrapped up in something and trying to refine yourself.
That's a great point for sure. Now, we've seen some families create their own foundations as well. So, it's a nice way to leave money to causes you believe in. And it's a great way to make sure the kids continue to speak to each other, right? Someday when the parents are gone.
Yeah.
Because they need to get together and approve some of the, the checks that are written from the foundation. And, there's some tax benefits for having that as well. So I totally agree with you. I think I've seen some clients that have really done a good job with their retirement. They'll sit down. We talked about taking some time off, and they'll write down a ton of goals for the retirement. It could be travel related, health, family, friends, sports, reading, religious goals, you name it.
Mm-hmm.
And, just go crazy and don't judge yourself. Just write them down, crazy or not. I think you'll see some folks that'll talk about things they love doing as a kid. or hobbies that you may have enjoyed that you stopped doing when children came, and a few things that scare you a bit. I mean, what was pretty cool recently is, and my wife and I subscribe to that too, just trying to do some things that scare you a little bit or challenge you. And we were away for a family vacation on Block Island. We rented a little place, and they had surfboard lessons or surfing lessons, and we had never done that. And I was definitely afraid I was going to kill myself. And there's been shark sightings everywhere. So, we had one eye, looking out for fins coming in the water.
That's right.
But it was so much fun. And my wife got up and she rode 5 or 6 waves in. My daughter Sophia got on and rode a few waves in. And of course, the old fat guy, I was always about 10 seconds too late on the wave. And so I'm determined I'll learn next year.
All right. Yeah. There you go. Put that on the goal list for sure.
Yeah. And then, but getting back to the goal piece, I mean, we have a lot of golfers that talk about, if they can afford to do it, top 10 destinations, whether it's St. Andrews or Pine Valley or Pebble Beach, Augusta, are some great destinations we've heard stories about. Boaters may want to do something called the Great Loop. I know one retired couple that I'm friendly with that, from the Northeast, the Great Loop is, you head up to the Great Lakes and then you head down the Mississippi River, and you time it so that you're not stuck there in the, up in the Great Lakes during the winter, of course. And you make your way down to Florida, and then ultimately the next year back up to the east. So there's some really cool goals you can do. And I actually have 2 tennis-loving clients that hit all the major tennis tournaments around the world over the last 10 years. So that was really cool as well. So just finding things that give you, to get you excited, right? And, once you hit 100 goals, I would write down some more, basically. I just think that there's so many people that after 30 or 40 years of work, they've put off so much in their lives that, writing the goals is helpful.
Yeah, I think that's a great exercise, especially for a married couple, because let's face it, we talk on a daily basis, but not necessarily about goals, dreams, desires of what we want to do for the next 10, 15, 20 years. We're just busy living life. And so when we get to that point, it's great. I think it would be a great exercise for each of them to write down their goals separately, bring them together, see what kind of matches, what overlaps, what sparks interest from one to another. And, I didn't think about that. Or, I never knew you wanted to do that. I mean, those are great conversations to have. And then being able to try to map that out or begin to map that out, I think that would give a good sense of fun and peace when you kind of know that you're on the same page about, some of the things that you want to do together.
For sure. And I think the biggest thing, when you look at retirement satisfaction, though, and when I see people that are really enjoying their lives, I think, beyond just the simple goal writing is just having that larger purpose. And we talked about this in a previous episode just on health and so forth. But, I think some of the people that live the longest, healthiest lives in retirement have a bigger purpose, that connects them to the community or just other human beings in the, locally or abroad. And if you're not so thrilled with human beings, maybe you're connected to the animals and what have you. But I think having that bigger purpose is important as well.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So that brings me to this question then, Eric. Have you and your wife discussed what you would want to do as far as, your larger purpose in retirement?
It's funny. Being a financial planner, I think we're always looking out forward. And I think my wife, thankfully, is very grounded in the present, more so. So I can't say that we've done that together as a couple. I think I have some ideas as to what she'd like. She's given me some broad stroke ideas, but I still have a ways to go for retirement. But I think if if you're thinking about it over the next few years, I think it's really important to do it as soon as you can.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, I think a lot of this comes out when couples talk about, and I think most couples listening to this would say that they've had this conversation, but what if we hit the Powerball, right? What if we won a big lottery? What would we do? Right. And my wife and I have talked about that many times, just kind of, daydreaming and just kind of thinking about some of the fun things that we would do. And both of us have a desire to give back. And I think that a lot of people do. And so we've thought about specific things that we would like to do. But again, that's if money's no object. Nice thing is those types of things are scalable, right? If we can't one of the things we talked about was starting a camp and retreat center, like a huge camp and retreat center for all sorts of different folks, and having all kinds of different things there for team building and all that jazz, because we love growth and all that for nice. Businesses, for churches, for people, families. And even if we couldn't start one, we could certainly find one to be a part of and help out, volunteer, or even do some part-time work out there, just kind of working on the grounds and just being part of the overall picture of that. And I think that couples, when they start to think about those things, right, and have those conversations, I think a lot of little nuggets can be pulled from that, and they can find things that they want to do together. Or it's not bad to do things separately either, because I think in retirement, when all of a sudden you're together 24 hours a day, that can be a little stressful as well, because somebody used to be out of the house for 10 hours a day, or both of you did.
Absolutely. No, I know my wife's aunt and uncle who spent a lot of time in Florida. They would not see each other until lunchtime. Basically, my wife's uncle John would, have certain routines. He helped out in his condo association. He was like the MacGyver of the community, and they would meet for lunch and discuss their day and what they wanted to do that evening. So we have some really good models in our life, and from family, and certainly from some cool clients that we have as well.
Nice.
Yeah, so I think that's basically it. I think financial planning is something that we all should do sooner rather than later. I think retirement planning and some of that retirement vision planning is important to do as well. I think as an advisor, I think that's something that I feel like I'm really good at helping people through all aspects of that retirement process, having had so many people retire. And I always think about John Wooden, who's just a phenomenal basketball coach. And he would just say, do not let what you cannot do interfere with what you can do. And I think that's so true with folks, especially as we age, right? So we all have some challenges, but I think we all can really plan for amazing lives. And I hope that's the case for everybody listening.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good word, man. I love that. Let's end on that. Eric, this is fantastic. Thank you so much for your time today.
Oh, thank you, Eric, as always.
You bet. And the last thank you goes to you, the listening audience. Thank you for tuning in and listening to the Unfettered Wealth Podcast with Eric Tashlein. If you have not subscribed to the podcast yet, please click the subscribe now button below. This way, when Eric comes out with a new podcast, it'll show up directly on your listening device. This makes it much easier to share these podcasts with your friends and family. Again, thanks so much for listening today. For everyone at Connecticut Capital Management Group, this is Eric Johnson reminding you to live your best day every day. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Unfettered Wealth Podcast. Click the subscribe button below to be notified when new episodes become available. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Connecticut Capital. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. Content should not be construed as personalized investment, legal, or tax advice. Please consult your advisor, attorney, or tax advisor in regards to your individual situation. Eric Tashlein is an investment advisory representative of Connecticut Capital Management Group, LLC, a registered investment advisor. Connecticut Capital Management Group, LLC, and Connecticut Benefits Group, LLC are not affiliated.